Hi everybody, it's Jo here, and I hope that this video finds you safe and well wherever you may be watching this. This week's video is a little bit different. I am collaborating with the wonderful Ran. Hi Ran.
Hello.
And Ran has his own YouTube channel. He's on TikTok. He's got over 16,000 followers on TikTok and Instagram. And his videos are on about revision, about university, UCAS, and his channel is Beyond the Blackboard. So please subscribe, maybe give him any comments about future videos that you would like. Anyway, on with today's video.
Oh, it is recording. Hello, Jo. Welcome. That's classic. Thanks so much. Let's have a conversation about exam stress, which obviously is very kind of topical at the moment, with mocks going on. Some people have just finished, some people are still in it, some people have it in January, some people have the real thing coming up obviously later next year. And it would be great to just talk, what do you think are the best ways of dealing with exam stress? Because we've all been there, but it'd be great to get a professional's advice on how to do that.
I think the thing with exams and mocks is that it's so different now, Ran, isn't it? Like if we was doing this video last year, it would be a completely different video. But because of the pandemic,
yeah,
it's just making things so unpredictable. And working as a school-based counsellor, and I deliver exam workshops, it's so hard to try and get young people to stay focused on what needs to be done with regards to your mocks and the need to revise, whilst having the uncertainty with regards to about your GCSEs, your A Levels, whatever assessments next summer, 2021, as well as having to process living in the here and now during a pandemic. So it's hard at the best of times, but just this year, it's just so much harder, isn't it? I think that's the biggest thing to get across.
So so the fact that there's just the way I kind of see it is that people only have so much headspace that they can deal with things. They have like a limit. They're like a battery, and if you try to overfill that battery full of lithium or whatever fills the battery, it's just not going to be able to power properly. In the same way, if you don't have enough energy in that battery, then you're also not going to be able to function properly. And right now, it's certainly, I just feel like everyone's battery is overflowing with those problems that you're talking about, with coronavirus, with schools shutting. Will they shut? Will they not? Health issues, or kind of worries, and revision. Yeah. How do people deal with that kind of bubbling, overflowing brain battery?
I think that is almost sometimes the $1 million question, is it's how do you cope with what's going on? My biggest thing that I try and use is this analogy with the bucket. Have you ever heard of the stress bucket?
I haven't.
No, so the stress bucket's brilliant. So if you can just imagine a bucket, and you imagine stress that flows into the bucket, and what will eventually happen to that stress in that bucket is it will overflow. And when it overflows is when sometimes we develop unhealthy coping strategies, which can be as simple as procrastinating, being lazy. It could affect our diet, overeating. It could, for some young people, self-harm. So there's all these unhealthy coping strategies. But the biggest one when it comes to revision is that procrastinating, is that I know what I need to do, I just can't get it done. So what we need to work out is we need to think about what stress and worry is in that bucket. So that's the biggest thing. Identify what's going on in your life. And then what we need to do is we need to create a tap. And this tap, it's just almost in the ideal world of when that bucket is getting too full with stress, is okay, either with regards to revision, this isn't going in right now, I'm not, the best version of myself right now, whatever it might be, is realizing that actually you have the control of that tap. And that tap is healthy coping strategies. So when life just feels like your battery, just too much, it's just taking control, taking charge, looking at what stress you do have in your stress bucket. And what I genuinely would encourage people to do that activity, you know, just to draw like a bucket, arrows, stress, writing in it, thinking about how, when you're not coping, how do you express it? How do you express it? And then it's also kind of, what can you do to make yourself feel better? And for some people that might be exercise, it might be seeing their friends, it, you know, there's so many different things. And I know life is harder now because we haven't got the cinema to go to with our mates on a Friday night. And it's, you know, saying that hopefully when these videos will be aired, will be kind of fully open again. But it's just trying to understand and realize that, yes, you can't control the pandemic. You can't control if and when your mocks, if and when your exams next year, but just looking at your bucket and what can you control. And that is that tap. It is that tap.
No, absolutely. That's really good advice. Because I guess, and it's interesting to, there's it's interesting. I'll pick up on, there's so much to pick up on there, but I guess the one thing I'll pick up on mostly is just focusing on what you can control, and not focusing on the things that you can't. And that's so, and it sounds so obvious, but it's just not human. I don't think it's human nature to naturally, we try and control things because subconsciously or consciously, because being out of control is scary and stressful, I guess. And it takes people their entire life to try and go on this journey of trying to accept the things that they can't control, and you know, focus on the things they can control to make those things better. And right now there's so many things that can't be controlled globally, massive forces happening, and your brain just will, and you know, your brain just will try and control it in a way. And it, you know, your version of control, it might not be actually, you know, you're not going to try and solve, you know, go to the world leaders and try and solve coronavirus, or, you know, look up a remedy. Your version of control might be, I guess, what might people's version of control be? Maybe procrastination is a version of control, or maybe
I think just we've just got to translate it. So if somebody's procrastinating because they're feeling that lack of control, it's just, okay, what can we control? And there's one thing that you can control is a routine. One thing you can control is a revision timetable. Just creating it, just starting off from the beginning and having your whole heart behind it. And I know with my school kids at my school and delivering the exam workshop, is that there is nothing worse than comparing yourself to other people. And I try and say it, don't compare yourself, don't compare yourself. And I've been with students that are in tears because they've not got a good grade. So I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, this grade, what is it? You know, an F, like how bad is it? And it's a B. So it's just trying not to compare yourself to other people, because other people's expectations are so different. But my one thing that I try and encourage my school kids to do is to start revising the smallest amount. It doesn't have to be big. But then what happens is, if your teacher or if a family member says, are you revising? You don't have to lie. Even if it is 15 minutes, once, twice a week, just to get going, at least you're not lying. At least you can hold your head up and just, yes, I am. That you don't need to tell them that it's maybe not enough to their standard, but at least you know that you've got going. So it's trying to take control in that sense. And, you know, young people have got it hard because they've got their homework to do and revision to be doing. So it's just having to prioritize, but to realize that when you are doing your homework, if you're putting your full attention into it, you're revising at the same time. You're still using this, you're still doing what needs to be done. So it's just trying to just pull it back, because there's a lot of expectation and pressure always, but just it feels more this year in different ways.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's also just as well, I think it's, again, for just being a lie. I think lying in general just takes a huge, it has a negative impact on you know, my mental health anyway. Just the process of not being honest with yourself or someone else, it definitely makes me feel very stressed. And so that's why I try and live as openly, as honestly as possible. Of course, doesn't always happen, but that's kind of what I strive for. But as well as that, so just that self-esteem booster of not needing to you know, have that little lie about how much you're working. It's also, I guess, building a habit of revision early is really important at the beginning. Before you, it's a kind of, we actually had a chat about this, but just before starting recording, is about whenever I have a big task, it's always about consistency and habit building rather than getting overexcited about the goal. And for me, even if, even if you're starting, if you set yourself a really simple task of 15 minutes of revision, 5 minutes of revision, whatever it is, and you do that consistently for, let's say, a week, that you're still massively, you're doing something important there, because you're building the habit. You're actually sitting down and saying to yourself, this is something that's important enough that I'm going to consistently make it a habit. And then once you've made it that consistent habit, it starts to get a heck of a lot easier. You suddenly don't have to, you don't have that feeling of dread every time that you go and sit down for a massive revision session, because you've already ripped off that plaster. You've already made it an automatic behavior for yourself. And it's the same for, you know, my YouTube channel and perhaps yours is making it a consistent thing that happens every week. Makes it so much easier when I have that behavior kind of in place, rather than if I don't do it for a couple of weeks by accident, and then it starts to become this thing that I have to work out and do, and when am I going to do it? So I just think, as well as, there's so many benefits of just starting, because firstly, you, as you said, you don't have to you know, feel pressure telling people you started revising, but also just forming that habit.
And I think sometimes what it is we tend to, like I said, compare and despair, because it's, oh, my friends are doing hours and hours. Well, good on your friends, that's great, that's earning. But when it comes to ourselves, it's actually, we'll talk about it later, but tapping into your why. But it's kind of just asking yourself about starting, and about thinking about how good it will feel after you've done that section, or imagine how good it will feel when you go to bed that night and you've had 3 revision sessions that week. You know, how good will it feel when you get to a point where it's actually like, okay, I've got 5 more minutes to go. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to crack on until I finish this particular, you know, section, topic, whatever. And I think sometimes it's just trying to find motivation in that feel good feeling, because it's like when you go for a run, or, you know, for a workout, you might never feel like you want to do it at the time, but you never regret it. I'm not too sure if I can say that 100% true for the revision, because I'm not 16. I was 36 yesterday, so we're far on. But I don't feel that far on, actually. But at the same time, it's just kind of imagining that feeling of, actually, how good is it going to feel when maybe I do go and show my parents some of the, you know, the books that I've read, or the notes that I've made, or, you know, I've just watched this video, or I've just played on this games. Like, there's so many apps out there with games of learning, isn't there? It's finding out what is your best way of revising. That is my biggest thing sometimes, trying to get kids to realise that if you're not somebody that's very good at reading and making notes, then what other ways can you learn? Because there's just different ways now. I liked one of your videos was about the visual, auditory and the kinesthetic learning. I think that's so true. It's just experiment until you find your method, your way.
Totally experiment, and realize that if you can't process information in one way, it doesn't make you stupid, basically. That took me a long time to kind of realize that, because I couldn't learn, and I still can't. I can't learn if someone describes something to me. It's like
Okay.
if someone says, if I had a task, for instance, a card game, it's an ongoing thing with my friend group. If we play a card game and they explain to me verbally how to do it, I just, it's literally like a mist descends, and I completely just can't keep track of what's going on or happening. I know, and I say this now, I have to, if there's a pen and a diagram, because I'm visual, I'm not auditory.
Yeah.
Some people can absorb auditory wise. I have to get a bit of paper and a pen and start drawing what they're telling me, or I just have to start playing, because I'm half visual, half kinesthetic, meaning like I learn by doing or kind of feeling. So, but I thought that made me kind of stupid. I kind of felt like that made me stupid for quite a long time. But then you just realize that you just have the brain has different ways of processing information. And, you know, in lessons, quite often, if a teacher is talking to you about something, and you know, as a student, you're not absorbing it, that can make you feel stupid. But there are techniques that you can do.
Yeah, I think when I was at school, my teachers would be, actually, Jo, if it came to you sitting an exam, you would deserve A stars, because I'd really put the effort in. But I'd just have a freaking outfit. I'd revise and I'd make the most beautiful revision cards, mind maps, things like that. But I just freaked out when exam. I just freaked out. And that's why when I went to college, I absolutely did awesome at college, because I didn't have any exams. It was all coursework.
Yeah.
So it's just having to work with what you've got, but to realize that, and I suppose we've just said it, haven't we, how it's realizing with time that actually, you know, and some people aren't made for exams. Some people are. I'll never forget, there was a young lad, he used to always be so naughty in lesson. I shouldn't use that word, but you know, his behavior used to be so poor in lesson, so disruptive. But then he'd go and walk into an exam, sit down, do the exam, walk out with A stars. And I'll be like, because some people can just master doing an exam, working under pressure. For me, no way.
No, totally. Yeah, exactly. I actually did a recent video on this, how Conor McGregor deals with that high pressure exam kind of focus. What do you suggest to anyone like that, who really struggles with that specific exam pressure? Because you're right, it's not, again, that can make, I was okay at exams, but I definitely didn't perform as well as I could do because of the pressure, and I would crumble a little bit, but I learned coping mechanisms. What do you think are there any techniques for the, like, on the day exam, like you're just about to go in the exam hall, you feel like your heart pumping, you feel like your brain is fuzzy, what do you do?
I think for me you just need to ground yourself, and you need to have like a reality check. And I kind of realized that over time, it's having to take control of what you can control. So at this moment, it's doing the exam and it's breathing. So what I would do is, and this is going to sound really silly, but there was visualizing things that I would do, such as, you know how you can't take your bags into the exam with you? They've got to be at the side, haven't they?
Yeah.
So I would imagine, as I would get my pencil case out, I would imagine putting in my worries into my bag, and almost visualizing that whatever's going on in my life right now, no matter what drama, whose drama, friendships, family, is that for now, you're just going to stay in my bag. I'm going to go and do an exam. And as soon as I might be sitting there and I might freak out, I just think, no, my worries are in my bag. And it's, you know, if I was to say that to you, or if I was to say it to my husband, he would think I'm going cuckoo, but it's what works for you, and you can't knock it until you've tried it. So one of mine was to put my worries in my bag. And if I was to sit there and think, oh my gosh, it'll be just like No, they're in my bag. I'm just going to leave them there. The other one is breathing. Sort out your breathing. There's some techniques. It's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm going to try and do this right now. 5 things that you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch. So that could be like right now, I can feel the weight on the floor. I can feel my finger. I can feel the clothing. Do you know what I mean? It's just the things that you can feel. 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Those last 2 is pretty impossible. But the beauty with grounding exercises is that it just brings your full awareness down into the present moment. Because what's happening is your brain is going into that fight or flight mode, you know, that freaking out. And if you can just control yourself and just bring yourself back down to reality. Do you know the Tasmanian devil?
Yeah.
He's one of the cartoon characters, the Tasmanian devil, when he's just whooshes around.
Yeah.
What we have to do is just imagine that that's possibly how your head's feeling, is just pull you back down. And then when you're back down and you've got your breath, then you can talk to yourself and you can go, okay, I've been studying for these. I'm going to try. I'm going to give it my best shot. You know, and it's just trying to talk yourself down to calm to then go for it. Because if you don't do that, then you might as well have opened up that English paper, and it may as well be in Spanish, because if your mind is not in the right place, it's just going to make it so much harder. So it's, and maybe, you know, we need the young people to Google different revision techniques, different breathing techniques, grounding techniques, for them to, oh my gosh, Ran, I could just carry on talking. Another one though is square breathing, which is a really good one, because no matter where you're at, there's normally always squares or rectangles. And it is a breath in, pause, breath out, breath in, breath out. Never let it be a circle, because you'll just be taking a breath in, but it's literally trying to do that square breathing, because it's just bringing your awareness and kind of disabling the amygdala, that cheeky chimp part of your brain, just from going off.
Yeah, and it's true. And I've got my own version of all those techniques, or developed them over without really realizing it necessarily. My version was, I just wouldn't do, some people would be like revising just before going into the exam hall, and like last minute, like looking over notes, trying to get that last bit of information. And I used to do that because I saw everyone else doing it, so I thought it'd give me an advantage. And then I realized it was actually taking me out of what I needed to be, which was essentially a flow state. I call it a flow state of just being in the moment, being present, which is what your, you know, square breathing technique will also allow you to be, is present in a flow state, so that all of that work and information that you've, you know, done in the past is in, you know, in your mind, in the back of your brain, but you've done the preparation, you've, you know, you're there, and this is your time to shine. So I say to myself on the day of the exam, I don't do any revision on the day of the exam. I have a leisurely breakfast. I, you know, take my time walking into, you know, the exam place, and then, you know, I say to myself as I enter the exam hall, I've done everything I can. Let's see, this is like, whatever will be, is essentially the mindset that I go in with. And I don't try and control, it's back to that control. I don't try and control things I can't control the outcome of the exam. Me worrying about the outcome of the exam at this stage is going to do absolutely nothing. So whatever will be is what I say myself. And when I told myself that at university, for instance, my grades just started building and building and building from there.
Wow.
Yeah,
it makes a difference. And I think, because I would be don't revise on the morning, but then I know that I've got certain kids that it works for them. So it is just that experimenting, and if it works for you, then do it. But you've really got to experiment, and that's what these mocks are all about.
Yeah,
that is what these mocks are about, is experimenting and finding out, actually, working until 1 o'clock in the morning does not help me, or having an early night, or, you know, having my bag packed, or having it to do. It's just experimenting what works for you, because what works for you might not necessarily work for your best mate or your partner or whoever. It's just making it realize that we're all individual.
Yeah,
All individual.
totally. It's like